Coming at it from a very different perspective. She does not like convenience stores because she grew up literally inside one. It's time now for the firing line. In my hand, I have a list of questions on convenience stores, brought to you by the convenience store inside the city morgue. The coroner store. Do you hear those groans, Canada? Finish this quote from 7-Eleven founder Joe C. Thompson Jr. Give the customers what? Graham.
All the money in the till if they have a weapon.
Oh, that's a three-pointer. Julie Kim.
Give the customers type 2 diabetes and keep them coming.
Big, nice support from the diabetes fans in the audience. Give the customers what they want, when and where they want it. That was the founder of 7-Eleven. According to Statista.com, in 2022, what was the #1 thing that Canadians went to convenience stores for? Julie.
Oh, I've experienced this. 2 hours of small talk with the store clerk who does not give a crap.
I will give an official point for that, yeah. Graham.
An alibi.
Incorrect, but full point. The actual answer was extreme energy drinks. Yeah, that's the firing line, everybody. Extreme. It's almost time for our Extreme Jubilee Place Theater audience to pick a winner. But first, here again in a jiffy to turn up the heat lamp on the colossal convenience of convenience stores, let's hear again from Graham Clark.
Let's take a second for convenience stores attached to gas stations, right? Maybe pick up some washer fluid or giant blue Gatorade, and if you're high, make sure you label which is which. Speaking of beverages, it all comes down to this. What matters the most to Winnipeg? It's Slurpee! Easy win. Easy win, the Slurpee. Winnipeg is the Slurpee capital of the world. I bid you the traditional convenience clerk goodbye. Hey, you gonna buy that or what? Thanks.
Graham Clark. Graham Clark. Thanks, Graham. Now, let's hear from a debating pro who's convenience stores. Once again, it's Julie Kim.
In closing, I just want to disagree with everything Graham has said, and I want him to lose the debate. Sure, you might be fooled and charmed by his positivity and affable beard. But just know that he gets to be his easy self because he didn't have to grow up toothless and understimulated with a sugar addiction in a cramped apartment above a convenience store, sentenced to a childhood of servitude. In my last-ditch attempt to bring you over to my side, if you vote for me, you will not be alone. I have got a message of support from the most famous convenience store owner in Canada. Just listen.
Wow, that's a great job, Julie Kim. Appa approve. Okay, see you.
Thank you!
Woo! That is real. Pulling on the heartstrings of the CBC faithful, I tell you. Well played. Well, let's see what the audience has decided by applause. Who amongst you converted and became 7-11th day Adventists after hearing Graham's snack supportive sermon? Graham Clark. Graham Clark. A lot of love for Graham. A lot of And who agreed with Julie that $15 for a loaf of bread is just not that convenient? Julie Kim. Very close. Good support. Good support on either side, but we got to give this one to Julie Kim. Down with the convenience stores. Big hand for Julie Kim and Graham Clark, everybody. Well, that's all for this week. I'm Steve Patterson saying to all those working at late-night convenience stores, thank you for your service. We really don't deserve it. I'll argue with you again soon, Canada. Good night.
The Debaters is created by Richard Side. This week's episode was produced by Nicole Callender, Chloe Edbrook, Dean Jenkinson, and Graham Clark. With continuity by Graham Clark, Diana Francis, and Gary Jones. Technical production by James Perella and Lloyd Peterson. Story editing by Gary Jones. With special thanks to Katie Ellen Humphreys, David Pride, and Emily Ferrier. Executive producer of CBC Radio Comedy is Lee Pitts. And thanks to everyone at the Jubilee Place Theatre and the Winnipeg Comedy Festival.
This is CBC Radio 1, 990 AM, 89.3 FM in Winnipeg. Over the past 2 decades, hundreds of local news outlets have closed across Canada. So how can journalism be preserved in your community?
There are definitely issues, but I don't feel hopeless about it. People are doing journalism that matters and makes a difference.
Pia Chattopadhyay convenes a panel of journalists to talk about the challenges and rewards of local news on The Sunday Magazine, Sunday morning at 9, 9:30 in Newfoundland, and on demand on CBC Listen.
You know the feeling of finding a really good podcast? Or the feeling of someone always being there, like your favorite radio show? Stream CBC Podcasts, CBC Music, and CBC Radio anytime, anywhere. Download the...
This is CBC News. At 12 o'clock, we're at 19 degrees with mostly clear skies over downtown Winnipeg. Good afternoon. I'm Matt Humphrey. Winnipeg has a new plan to stimulate the creation of downtown housing. City planners are recommending the city waive millions in fees for developers who build residential housing in the center of the city. The CBC's Bartley Kivas has your details.
The city has published a new planning framework for downtown Winnipeg. It envisions improvements in every corner of downtown. Most of that would be accomplished over the next 25 years, but in the short term, the city has concrete plans. One of them involves waiving up to $2.25 million a year in fees for downtown residential development. This would be to recognize the additional costs associated with building downtown. Fees that could be reimbursed include building permits, design reviews, heritage permits, and the loss of paid parking during construction. The plan comes before council in July. Bartley Kivas, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A criminal justice expert says there are programs to help repeat offenders, but help is limited in provincial jails. David Burling was arrested on Wednesday after a police chase involving a stolen vehicle that led to the passenger in the truck being shot and killed by police. Burling has been convicted 5 times before from running from the police. Michael Weinrath is a criminal justice professor at the University of Winnipeg. He says cognitive behavior therapy programs are available for repeat offenders.
Now, he's only done provincial time, and provincial time, especially on remand, there's more limited opportunities for programming. So it may be one of those cases, sad to say, that a longer federal term may be actually more beneficial for him.
Weinrath says without good family and community supports, many car thieves slide back into their criminal ways. Altona's police chief says officers will be on hand to ensure the Pembina Valley Pride event this weekend goes smoothly. Food trucks that were supposed to be there pulled out this week because of online threats. Someone said they would vandalize the food trucks if they participated. Chief Dan DeFair says police will be at the event.
If they were to reconsider and attend, I mean, just like any other participant, the police would be on scene and the safety would be provided just the same as any other participant.
Altona Pride organizers have also hired private security for activities in the community this weekend. Winnipeg police have released a report showing a rising number of random acts of violence by young people last year. The update on Project Surge shows most of the incidents were tied to retail thefts or personal robberies. Police have identified 117 young people who are responsible for almost 1,800 police incidents. Police say it became apparent many of the youth had been arrested before, and many were involved in high-risk lifestyles, coming from traumatic backgrounds, requiring social support. Police say the goal of Project Surge is to work with agencies to address some of the problems faced by these young people. There's still no end in sight to the water emergency in the city of Calgary. A broken water main is threatening the city's water supply, and yesterday, people were asked to limit their water use. Today, they're being asked to cut back even further. Susan Henry is with Calgary's Emergency Management Agency.
We're asking you today to reduce your water use an additional 25% of what you reduced yesterday. And we're hoping everyone can do just that little bit more. That's a few minutes off of your shower, skipping a few flushes, holding off on your load of laundry, holding off on your dishes.
A boil water advisory remains in effect for more than 10,000 homes in the city's Bonus neighborhood, and a citywide fire ban is still in place. The main break is limiting the amount of water that can be distributed throughout the city, and it's still not clear when the main will be repaired. United Nations Chief Antonio Guterres has added Israel's military to a global list of offenders who have committed violations against children. The list is included in a report due to be submitted to the UN Security Council later this month. The UN says thousands of children have been killed and wounded since Israel launched its Gaza offensive following the Hamas attacks on October 7th. Israel's foreign minister warns the decision will affect the country's relations with the world body. There's still no word on the outcome of the contract negotiations with Canada Border Services officers. Their strike deadline is set for 3 this afternoon, Central Time. 90% of the staff are designated essential workers. It means they cannot walk off the job, but can work to rule. And they could cause delays and disruptions at border crossings and airports. The union says the key issue in the dispute includes pay parity with other law enforcement agencies, remote work options, and pension benefits. And finally, he says he's touched the city would make this change.
Not red enough, not white enough. Which way should they go?
Ray St. Germain and his song Métis. Today, the city has renamed the St. Vital Street where he once lived as a child the honorary Big Country Way. The street is St. Michael's Road. Big Country was the name of a TV show hosted by Germain, which ran for 13 years. The city says the renaming is in honor of Germain's contributions to the music industry.
Prepare to fight. Remember Manitoba, you couldn't lick me then. You go ahead, you send.
In Winnipeg, we have a late afternoon risk of a thunderstorm, but mainly sunny today, a high of 22. Brandon, a risk of thunder or showers, and a high of 21 degrees. Dauphin, a good chance of showers or a storm, and a high of 20 degrees.
Good afternoon, Manitoba. You're listening to Radio Noon here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Listen app and on the CBC Manitoba YouTube page. I'm Corey Funk, in for Janet Stewart, and you can bet we're going to be playing Ray St. Germain this afternoon on Radio Noon. What a voice, huh? Well, coming up this hour on the show, after a cyclist was killed in a hit-and-run yesterday, we're talking about cycling safety in our call-in conversation. We want to hear from you. What do you think needs to change to keep cyclists safe? We're going to stay tuned for that at 12:30. We're going to take your calls and speak with the head of Bike Winnipeg. But this half hour on the show, the old joke goes, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice, practice, practice. That's what 25 former members of the Westman Youth Choir have been doing, practicing for the big chance to perform at Carnegie Hall this weekend. But first up here on the show, talks continue in the final hours before a border strike deadline. At 4 this afternoon Eastern Time, the union representing Canadian Border Services agency officers say they will begin to work work to rule job action. The CBSA officers and staff have been without a contract for 2 years. They can't walk off the job because they are essential workers, but they say they might start working exactly by the book, which could slow traffic at the border. And that uncertainty could pose challenges for businesses that depend on the border and Canada's economy as a whole. So for some insight, we've reached Ian Lee. He's associate professor at Carleton University's Sprott School of Business. Good afternoon, Ian.
Oh, good afternoon.
So tell me a little bit about why the CBSA officers can't actually walk off the job, even though, they're striking.
Yes, very good question. Under the collective bargaining regime, which was only approved back in 1967, I say only, it hasn't been collective bargaining hasn't been in the government since the beginning of the country. It was only brought into being and allowed legally by then Liberal Prime Minister Lester Pearson. And it was the very first government jurisdiction in North America, if I'm not mistaken, to allow collective bargaining in government. And then it quickly spread to the provinces in the years after 1967. The legislation that governs everything about this is the Public Service Staff Relations Act. It's an act of Parliament. It's been amended many, many times. And it deems the department in Ottawa called the Treasury Board Secretariat. It's just a government department. And it is the employer of the public service. So it negotiates with all the unions. And it negotiates pay, benefits, and most importantly, it determines, in conjunction with the unions, which occupations will be designated essential. Because there's a wide recognition and acceptance that there are some jobs that cannot go on strike. The guards in Canadian penitentiaries cannot strike. RCMP cannot strike. These are obvious. And another one is the border. The border is an exclusively federal jurisdiction under the Constitution Act of Canada. And the government passed separate legislation to set up the CBSA to control all border points to Canada. And so they were designated essential because you can't have a border sometimes open, sometimes closed. It's not like a restaurant. It's got to be open at all times for people arriving, whether they're Canadians returning to Canada by car or by plane, or visitors to Canada. So they were designated essential, which means they cannot strike. So that's where we are now.
And so I guess that puts the union in a bit of a bind, right? Because the whole idea of a strike is being able to walk off the job. It gives you a certain amount of leverage, right? But there is a way around that, and that's called this work to rule action. Tell me a little about how that works and what that could mean in terms of what they do.
Well, what they're doing is they're going to the border, the people in the CBSA that are designated, meaning they can't strike in a formal legal sense. What they're planning on doing is exercising their discretion. Under the act that created the CBSA, border guards are given extraordinary discretion, understandably and properly so. So they can ask anybody, not just foreign persons, Canadians returning, where were you? What did you buy? Are you bringing back any illegal substances? We've all been through the border. I'm sure everyone listening.
Oh, yeah.
And so the point is, most of us, they're trained. The border guards are very trained people, very experienced people, and they can size us up pretty quickly, and they've got data in the computer from, I guess, past trips, I don't know, and they can size us up. And so most of the time, certainly when I've gone through the border, and I've gone through it hundreds of times in my life, literally, because I'm so close to the U.S. border, by the way, in Ottawa, they ask a couple of perfunctory questions, and they say, okay, thank you. Carry on, go on. You're free to go. And I can clear. Often I clear from the time I'm standing border guard. I'm standing there for less than 60 seconds. 60 seconds or so, and you're through the border. What they're going to do now, what they're proposing to do, is they will ask a whole range of questions. They can say, look, we want to look into your luggage. Pull your car over here, sir. And the trucks, remember the trucks are going through. 90% of all the goods that come into Canada come in on trucks. They normally look at the bill of lading or the manifest, which is a document, and say, okay, it's disclosed, go on and carry on through. They can say, no, we want to inspect every truck physically. Well, if you go and apply the letter of apply all the rules that you're allowed to do, that you have the discretion to apply, you can create a first-rate lineup, a bottleneck, traffic jam at each border point and at the airport.
Right. And we were talking a little bit about truckers. I imagine those are the people who are probably most impacted by job action like this if it does go ahead. What do you think the impact could be on the trucking industry if they don't get an agreement by the deadline?
You're going to see a blowback that's incredible. You're going to see the Chamber of Commerce coming out on television, and the Exporters and Manufacturers Association, and the auto industry, because of the changes over the last 20, 30 years, especially in manufacturing, of just in time. And the supply chains have become very efficient and very short. I mean by short, you don't carry months of inventory, or even 25 years ago, maybe 30 days of inventory on the floor of General Motors. Now you carry maybe a day or something like that. You have very small amounts of inventory because you have very tightly coupled, efficient supply chains. So that's great as long as the border and everything's working. So they are the first to feel it. And for those who say, oh, well, who cares if GM or, loses a little bit of money, because the supply chains are so tightly coupled and with so little inventory on hand, if they don't have the inventory coming in because the trucks cannot cross the border, they'll start shutting down plants and laying off workers. And grocery stores won't be able to get the food to go into fill their shelves. So it's going to have a huge impact on the economy.
Right. And can you just give us an idea like how much of our GDP kind of depends on goods that are imported, exported?
1/3 of our GDP is imported. That's a lot. That's 2.5 trillion GDP. So 1/3 is about 800 billion. And, people don't think about it, but you go to the grocery store, I tell this to my students, we don't grow blueberries in Ottawa in a snowbank in January. And
Right.
most of our fruit and vegetables are imported from the United States or Mexico or Central America. We don't build John Deere tractors in Canada, to the best of my knowledge. We import all manner of things, and that's the whole nature of free trade and NAFTA, or CUSMA as it's now called. And so we've had the integration of industries and supply chains on both sides of the border. And so we are joined at the hip with the U.S. economy, and so the impact is really astonishing, and it becomes visible and affects us almost immediately.
I know there's been kind of similar things. I know, like the port worker strike, for example, caused a big impact on the economy, and to a certain degree, I think some businesses may still well be feeling some of the residual effects of that. Could this compound some of those impacts from a previous strike like that?
I don't think so, because they come back. They're quite resilient, especially after the pandemic, when we learned so much about the downside, the danger, the risk of shutting down supply chains. There was a great learning experience, by the way. I'm not trying to say it was a wonderful time. None of us liked the pandemic, but there were things that came out of it that were positive, meaning we really developed a much deeper understanding of supply chains, and I think they're more resilient today than 4 or 5 years ago. But we also learned, yet again, how important it is to keep the borders open. And I'm really talking about the 5 most important airports and the major border crossings, because there's so many people that come through roughly 5 airports and the major border points. With, as I said, 90% of all the goods coming to Canada come through on trucks, on those great big 18-wheel trucks. And I mean, everything comes through on those trucks. Everything you see at Shoppers Drug Mart or Loblaws or whatever. I shouldn't say everything. A lot of the stuff on their shelves, on Walmart or Costco, a lot of it is coming through on trucks.
So we're now less than about 3 hours away from this deadline. Yes. What do you be watching for as we kind of get closer over the next 3 hours?
How quickly the government's going to respond.
Okay.
Are they going to order them back to work? Are they going to legislate it? Or are they going to try and jawbone them, moral suasion to go back to the bargaining table?
And how much leverage does the government have to do something like that?
The big stick is, of course, we can threaten you and put you, legislate you back to work. That's the nuclear option.
Right. Ian, we'll have to wait and see what happens in the next 3 hours or so. Thank you so much for joining us right now.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Ian Lee is an associate professor at the Carleton University's Sprott School of Business.
Angeline Tadaweo hosts The Block.
Afrobeats to jazz, hip-hop to R&B, calypso, Kez the Band, Michelle Montano, Bob Marley, Bounty Killer. So we really give all these artists a chance to shine, and the key is in the programming, in making it make sense, and making sure that the music is fluid, a fluid experience.
The Block with Angeline Tadaweo. Available now on CBC Listen.
Well, you're listening to Radio Noon here on CBC Radio 1. I'm Corey Funk, in for Janet Stewart. And still to come, on Carnegie Hall in New York City has been one of the world's most famous concert halls for 133 years. And this weekend, 25 Manitobans get the chance to perform there. We're going to hear why coming up very shortly. But first, let's take a look at your weather right now across the province. Quite the range in the far north in Churchill. Our cold spot today is Churchill, 2 degrees, and the warm spot today is Emerson, quite emblematic of some of the border concerns going on today too. It's 22 degrees right now in Emerson. Everything else is in between that range. Brandon, right now, you are sitting at 18, mostly cloudy at the airport. Dauphin, mainly sunny, 19 right now for you. Fisher Branch, you're sitting at 19 as well. Gillam, 6 degrees, some light drizzle for you. Gimli, 19 degrees for you. Island Lake at the airport, cloudy, 10 degrees. Lynn Lake at the airport, cloudy, 7 degrees. Portage, mostly cloudy, 19 right now. The Paw, mostly cloudy, and 13. Thompson, light drizzle right now, 8 degrees. Victoria Beach, you're sitting at 16 right now with Sagaming, 16 degrees as well. And Winnipeg at the Forks, 21, mostly cloudy. Those beautiful voices belong to former members of the Westman Youth Choir. They're from Winnipeg, Brandon, Neepawa, Verdun, Killarney, Deloraine, Melita, Oak Lake, and Carnduff, Saskatchewan, and 25 people with a couple of key connections. They are going to perform together this weekend in New York City's, believe it or not, Carnegie Hall. And Paula Ginsberg is one of those singers, and Janet Stewart spoke with her by Zoom just before she hopped on a flight to the Big Apple.
Where does your mind go when I say the words Carnegie Hall?
Oh my gosh, it's surreal, actually. Never in my wildest dreams would I have ever thought that I'd be getting to sing there, especially with my alumni choir, Westman Youth Choir.
And what does Westman Youth Choir mean to you?
Oh my gosh, it's one of the most beautiful times in my life, where we got together for 2 weekends in a row back in 1990, and then went on a short tour, to all the small towns in Western Manitoba. And, you make friends for life. Like, actually, one of the girls that was in my choir in 1990 is going to be joining me. So I feel very fortunate that, we haven't seen each other in 30 years or something. And my mind, when you say Carnegie, it goes to, I think of the greats, right? Like Frank Sinatra has sung there, and then, and it's come full circle because, New Kids on the Block has also been on that stage. So yeah, I feel very fortunate.
You're going to perform there.
Oh,
Sunday.
It's insane. It's very exciting. Yeah.
You'll be there as part of a big international choir.
Yes.
Tell us about this international choir. Where are people coming from?
Wow. Well, I know we're being joined by a choir from Mexico. There's a choir from Italy. The UK. It's become international for sure. There's a 209 mega choir. I guess we're all going to be mixed together. And yeah. And so Westman Youth Choir itself has been going for 41 years, but never would we have ever thought, I think, that we would just be asked out of the blue to come and be a part of this.
Out of the blue, concert promoters in New York City, they're looking online. They're planning to feature Grammy Award-winning composer Christopher Tin, directing soloists and a big international choir. They see a video of the Westman Youth Choir from 2008 singing his most famous composition. Then what happens?
I mean, I guess he reaches out to the board of directors of Westman Youth Choir, and I mean, I guess they must have impressed him, singing his most famous song, like you said, and
Baba Yetu, it's called.
Yes,
and they go online, I guess. They reach out to alumni members. How did you hear about this opportunity?
Well, it's wild because, I almost didn't believe it when I was scrolling through my phone. It kind of looked like an ad, but it did say Westman Youth Choir. So I zoomed in on it, and sure enough, it's like alumni has been invited. And so, you delve into it a little bit further and you realize, oh, this is actually true. It's not, fake news. But yeah. And then he's also been known he's done a series of songs based on, I guess, civilization and I guess he's Grammy Award winning, known for his composing for Civilization 4 and 6, I believe it is.
Which video games, yes. And he was the
yeah.
first person to win a Grammy for something done for a video game. So, he's got real cred. You've recently found out that he worked with a group whose music you love.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So my husband and I watched this group called Voces 8, and he works very closely with them. And so he's done this series on birds called The Lost Birds. And so we're singing 3 of the songs or 2 of the songs from that series. And so I couldn't believe it because I didn't realize that they were working so closely with Christopher Tin. And so it's come full circle. Like we get
full circle.
Yeah.
And now
listen to their music too.
You will be, and we'll think of you every time we do listen to any of Christopher Tin's music. So Thursday you land in New York City.
Yes. So
hugely exciting. Do you get to go? When do you get to go to Carnegie Hall? Do you get to rehearse there?
Yeah. So we have 2 half days rehearsing with Christopher Tin and the other choirs that we've never met before. So it's going to be a whirlwind, and then dress rehearsal the morning of. So Sunday, June 9th. The concert starts at 2:00, and I guess that's 1:00 our time because there's an hour difference. But and then we'll all be in our blacks and getting ready to go.
Oh, that's so exciting. They're going to be recording it. Any idea if we can watch this live online?
Yeah, you know what? I don't know if they will give the link for online, but they're definitely recording it and will give us copies of that a couple of weeks after. They have professional photographers going to be taking some pictures as well. And, we're able to buy the poster and different things. And but I don't know if there's any tickets left, but try to go get them.
What if you sold out Carnegie Hall?
That'd be amazing. Can you imagine? Oh,
Paula Ginsberg, I hope you have a wonderful time. And maybe we'll talk to you when you get back to ask what this experience was like.
Oh, that'd be fabulous. And I have to give a shout out to Shannon Moses, who, wanted to be here today, obviously. And she's been helping direct us for our Brandon rehearsals. And we definitely couldn't have done it without her. So shout out to her.
Is Shannon jumping on the plane with you or staying home?
Yeah, no, she better be. No, she's going to be singing in the altos. So
fantastic. Well, maybe we'll get Shannon with us when we check back in.
That'd be fabulous.
Have a wonderful trip.
Thank you so much.
Chatting with the CBC's Janet Stewart. She and 24 other former members of the Westman Youth Choir are in New York City right now. They're preparing to perform as part of an international choir directed by composer Christopher Lynn. And if you're, happen to be in New York for whatever reason this weekend, they perform Sunday at 2 p.m. at the famous Carnegie Hall. Well, it's coming up on 12:27 right now here on Radio Noon, and we got time for a little bit of special music for you. The Manitoba Métis Federation is celebrating the life and music of Ray Saint Germain with a new Winnipeg street name. St. Michael Road will now be renamed to Big Sky Country Way in honor of the Manitoba country star and the network show that he once hosted. Here's Ray Saint Germain now with I'm Mighty Proud, I'm Métis.
I was born on the plains beneath the half-moon sky. Roamed o'er the lands on my mama's back. My daddy European, my mama's swampy Cree, and I'm mighty proud I'm Métis. Daddy taught me French, Mama, she spoke Cree. So I talked my chief, a little mix of both. From the time I learned to walk, that's all that I could talk. And I'm mighty proud I'm Métis. Deep inside I know that I am special. I am my mama's side and daddy's too. To both, you'll always hear me boast that I'm mighty proud I'm Métis. Mama realized a nation it was born, a nation that would rise. We were in between. I have my daddy's looks, my sister lovely Cree, and we're mighty proud we're Métis. Mama taught me to walk tall, daddy to be strong. Hold your head up high, don't you ever bend. It'll be a long, long road, you'll carry a heavy load, but you're the best of both, you're Métis.
That's Ray Saint Germain with I'm Mighty Proud, I'm Métis. He's getting a street named after him. So if you find yourself driving down a Big Sky Country Way, that's inspired by him. Stay tuned here on Radio Noon. We'll be talking bike safety. That's going to be our call-in conversation. So we're going to open up the phone lines. You can share your stories about bike safety, what you want to see to make the street safer for cyclists. That's coming up on Radio Noon. We're going to let Ray take us out.
This is CBC News. At 12:30, we're at 21 degrees with partly cloudy skies over downtown Winnipeg. Good afternoon. I'm Matt Humphrey. An arrest has been made in connection with the fatal cyclist collision on Wellington Crescent. Winnipeg police say a white BMW was operating at a high rate of speed when it hit the cyclist near Coburn Street North. 19-year-old Beckham Kenneth Severite has been charged with dangerous driving causing death and failing to stop at the scene of the collision. Severite is now in custody. Yesterday, the 61-year-old cyclist was hit around 7 a.m. He later died in hospital. The city has published a new planning framework for downtown Winnipeg. It envisions improvements in every corner of downtown. Most of that would be accomplished over the next 25 years. But in the short term, the city has more concrete plans. One of them involves waiving up to $2.25 million a year in fees for downtown residential development. This would be to recognize the additional cost associated with building downtown. Fees that could be reimbursed include building permits, design reviews, heritage permits, and the loss of paid parking during construction. The plan comes before council in July. And U.S. President Joe Biden says the fight for democracy is as relevant now as it was 80 years ago. Speaking in Normandy, Biden assured the United States would not walk away from supporting Ukraine in its war with Russia. And he apologized to his Ukrainian counterpart for delays in American military support. Julia Chapman has more.
They're not asking us to scale these cliffs, but they're asking us to stay true to what America stands for.
Paying tribute to the bravery of U.S. troops on D-Day 8 decades ago, President Joe Biden drew parallels to the latest conflict on European soil. He said there was no doubt that if they were alive today, U.S. veterans would stand up to Russian aggression and vanquish a hateful ideology. Biden announced a fresh aid package worth $225 million to help restore Ukraine's damaged electricity grid as he met President Volodymyr Zelensky in Paris. In a speech at France's National Assembly, Zelensky warned Europe is no longer a continent of peace because of Russia's war. And as the U.S. presidential election looms, continued backing for Ukraine is far from guaranteed. Julia Chapman for CBC News, London.
And that is your CBC News from Winnipeg. For news anytime, head on to our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba, or use the CBC News app.
Thank you very much, Matt.
Back soon.
That is Matt Humphreys at our CBC News desk. Well, it's starting to look a little maybe less wet there, Riley, than normal, perhaps?
Yeah, we're entering a bit of a drier stretch, Corey. I want to start by talking about something that you might be up to this weekend, yard sailing.
Ooh, yes.
If you're looking for a good deal.
Okay, yeah.
Some good weather if you're looking for some good deals this weekend. We're looking at mainly sunny day tomorrow across much of southern Manitoba. 22 degrees in Winnipeg. Risk we could see an isolated thunderstorm in the afternoon. Otherwise, we're looking at a pretty decent day tomorrow, pretty seasonal day as well, and not as windy tomorrow as it was today. Sunday, if you're heading out or having a yard sale or something, 19 degrees by the time we hit the afternoon with a partly cloudy sky. Right now, temperatures right around 19, 20 degrees across southern Manitoba. Winnipeg's at 20 right now. 8 in Thompson. Still a few showers across northern Manitoba. Churchill to Dooley Lake, both at 2 degrees. Still kind of at the mercy of that onshore flow from Hudson Bay, which is really tanking temperatures in far northern Manitoba. We will see that rain start to move out as we get into the later part of today into tomorrow. For us in the south, a little bit of scattered shower activity in extreme southwestern Manitoba. So areas like Melita, Deloraine, Boissevain, picking up a few showers at the moment. Could see a few rumbles of thunder through the Red River Valley into the Interlake by the time we hit late afternoon. Again, fairly isolated in nature, but we could see a few thunderstorms this afternoon. So just eyes to the sky on that. Otherwise, we're looking at a mainly clear night tonight, a pretty calm night tonight wind-wise as well. We'll see the wind start to die off as we get into the evening. Mainly sunny start to tomorrow in southern Manitoba. Still a few lingering showers in the north, but otherwise, Saturday, Sunday, we're drying out quite nicely across all of Manitoba. In terms of accumulation, really not much to speak of unless you kind of get caught in one of these little thunderstorms that we see here and there. 22 is what I have for Winnipeg this afternoon. A mainly sunny sky. Brandon's at 21 for a high this afternoon. Also looking at 21 in Dauphin and a few lingering showers. 11 degrees in Thompson. 19s and 20s for the weekend. I've got 22 for Winnipeg for Saturday, 24 for Monday, and then into the low 20s for Tuesday and Wednesday with a bit more rain coming on Tuesday.
Thank you very much, Riley.
No problem.
That is our CBC weather specialist and climate change reporter, Riley Lachuk. Well, as you've been hearing in the news, Winnipeg police say a 61-year-old died after being hit by a vehicle on Wellington Crescent yesterday at the intersection with Coburn Street. He was cycling, and the cyclist was rushed to a hospital in critical condition but died from his injuries. Police say the driver took off, but the vehicle has since been recovered, and the driver has been arrested. Beckham Kenneth Severite, 19 years old, has been charged with dangerous operation of a conveyance causing death, as well as fail to stop at the scene of an accident. That is just as of news, just about an hour ago. That needs to. So we're asking you today, what needs to change to keep cyclists safe? Cyclists, we want to hear your thoughts and experiences, and maybe you're a motorist as well. What would make it easier easier for you to share the road with cyclists safely. So we are opening up our lines to hear from you, to share your stories. You can call us at 204-780-0893. That's 204-780-0893. Our director, Wendy Parker, is standing by to put you on air. We also have with us here in studio Mark Coho. He is the executive director of Bike Winnipeg. Good afternoon, Mark.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, well, Mark, so what was your reaction when you heard about the hit and run incident yesterday?
Well, it's sad. We know that someone was out just having their average day, trying to get, I assume, to work, and that person didn't make it to work. That person's family and friends were expecting them to be at work, to come home, probably looking forward to a weekend with some good sunny weather, and now that's not going to happen. That's a life lost. And it's also a 19-year-old whose life is changed forever. And, I don't know the circumstances here, but what we do know is that these kinds of things are preventable, that it's not an accident. It's something that through our roadway design, through our actions and our inactions, and through our education and enforcement, that we've allowed to happen. And it's something that I think we need to really reshape in this city. We shouldn't be standing by, and we shouldn't really have any fatalities and serious injuries. We shouldn't have that, because there's lots of life-changing injuries that happen as well.
Thanks for that. And just before we have people calling in, so we're looking forward to getting to you. Karen is on the line here. Karen, hello to you. Oh, hi there, Karen.
Hi, I'm glad to talk about this because I'm 78 years old. I've always lived in Manitoba, but my daughter has always lived in Antwerp, Belgium. And when I go there, my only mode of transport...
Karen, I think we may have lost you there. I don't know if we lost reception there, but one second here, Karen. Oh, hey there, Karen. Sorry, we're back. We just had a phone error there. Carry on. You have a daughter in Antwerp, and you bike a lot when you visit her in Belgium. Carry on.
Yes. So what they do there is there's wide sidewalks, and so the bike lanes are actually, it's sort of a red brick that they put on that is the bike lane, and both people that are in cars, on bikes, and walking all know the rules. Like, no walkers walk in the bike lane, and the bikes are as busy as a rush hour traffic when it's rush hour there, and yet I'm the only person that ever had a little fall, and that was because my front wheel turned in a strange way, but I've never seen any issues there. But it is use of wide sidewalks. So the bikes are not competing in the fast traffic or the car traffic.
Right. Well, thanks for that, Karen. Mark, what do you kind of make of that approach?
Yeah. So what she's speaking to there is in a lot of the European countries, but more so also in Canada here and in North America, we're moving to protected bike lanes. So physically separated bike lane that's separated from the traffic, but it's also separated from people that are walking. And it's something that continues into the intersection. So their intersections are also designed a lot differently. They're made to really slow down that traffic, so you can't make a quick turn through an intersection. They're trying to make sure that where vehicles and people biking or walking cross each other's paths, they're crossing each other at a right angle, at slow speed. And I think that's something we really, really need to push for more here in Winnipeg. We've started to see some of our protected bike lanes come in, but we're really failing at the intersections on that. There are some fantastic guidelines the City of Ottawa has put out. There's best practices we can follow, but we need to actually go through and make that cultural change to say that safety is our first priority on our roadways, that everyone is going to get home safe.
Speaking of, best practices, we have another caller on the line now. Thank you very much, Karen. Patrick's on the line now, potentially to chat a little bit about something that's happening in BC. Hi there, Patrick.
Well, hey, Corey. Good afternoon. Thanks for taking my call.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
First of all, just condolences to this gentleman's family. I'm in the same age range, and I can't imagine what they're going through. What a useless loss of life over somebody who was just engaging in active, transportation and getting some exercise and trying to stay fit. British Columbia passed a law this week, effective June the 3rd. It's called the Vulnerable Road Users Law, where they have laid out minimum distances that vehicles must abide by when passing vulnerable road users, being cyclists, pedestrians, even electric scooters. They've got to be a minimum of a meter away from, and that's the tip of their mirror, has to be a minimum of a 1 meter away from the, let's say, the cyclist. If the speed limit is 50 kilometers or less, and where speed limits are higher than that, they're 1.5 meters away. So I just have to wonder whether that's something that the province of Manitoba should take a look at in terms of, it's a very new law. They're still, I think, trying to decide how they're going to enforce it. But a lot of it, I'll be honest with you, it's not a very friendly town for cyclists when it comes to contact with vehicles. I'm a motorcyclist as well, and I've felt the same way where, vehicles were tailgating me way too close to my motorcycle. My son just graduated this week from the University of Manitoba, and he insists on cycling from North Kildonan to the Exchange District every day. And I tell you, I'm praying every day that he makes it home safely because, I think cyclists are seen as an annoyance. They're resented by some drivers. And really, in my mind, it's almost a change of attitude that needs to kind of go over, come over everyone, where they look at these people as they're not polluting, they're staying fit. That helps them to stay out of hospitals. It saves us on a cost basis as far as people staying healthy. There's so many positives about cyclists, and yet, boy, the way they're seen by I'm not saying all drivers, but it sure seems like people need to look at cyclists just differently.
Thanks for that, Patrick. Mark, what do you make of that BC law that Patrick was talking about?
Yeah, it's certainly safe passing laws are something we have lobbied for in the past, and we continue to think would be a good idea. And with the vulnerable road users as well. I know in some countries, in the Netherlands, it's really the onus is on the driver of the vehicle to have that safety, and it's sort of basically it's the assumption is that you're responsible for that safety, and it's important. Like you said, it's a matter. We're trading convenience for safety, and I don't think we should ever be making that trade. I don't think anyone thinks that. No one wants to go out and hurt someone. But certainly if you're on the vehicle, if you're in a vehicle, you're driving and you're behind someone on their bike, it's important to make sure you are giving that safe space when you're passing. Give a good clearance. I would say 1.5 meters. Change lanes if you can, half a lane. It makes a world of difference to the person who's biking next to you. It allows them to feel safe, to feel comfortable. And it's like you said, it's this huge benefits that we get from people biking, whether it's the cost to our roadways, whether it's our health, but it's also money saved by the people that are doing that, and they're feeling better, they're more productive. So if we can get that kind of safety and that safe passing, it makes a huge difference. I would love to see a safe passing law in Manitoba.
I find it also interesting in terms of categorizing cyclists as vulnerable road users. What do you make of that label?
It's truthful. I think we always try to make sure we're personalizing, whether it's someone who's walking, biking, because we think, if we're mentally putting ourselves in the place of that person on the bike, that person walking down the sidewalk, it makes it easier to empathize. Hopefully you're thinking a bit more, and you're able to think of that person as your son, your daughter, your friend, your father, your aunt, your uncle. And give them that space and take that little extra bit of time.
Thanks for that call, Patrick. Thanks for calling and sharing your perspective. We want to hear more from you. You can call us. We're still taking calls, 204-780-0893. That's 204-780-0893. Now, I actually want to take us back to the intersection where this the hit and run happened yesterday. We actually got this call from Jason earlier today.
Morning, it's Jason Carter on a bike at about 5 to 8 on Friday morning. I'm standing at the corner of Wellington Crescent and Coburn Street North. This is the scene where a fatality, a cyclist was killed. We still see debris from the emergency services on the boulevard here. Just a few points about this. First of all, the Wellington Crescent west of Academy Road is 30K. And it's long been seen as a Sunday route and a very enjoyable route. This route here is also used to be, in my day, the way to get to downtown and into the village and into the ledge, because the route over by Balmoral was not well known and was very difficult. However, as traffic numbers grew, this has been well known in the cycling community as very risky. East of Academy Road, this stretch is 50K an hour. There is really no reason for this to be 50K here. It is chaotic just from watching the cars for a little while. There's cars coming out of the side streets. And right here, I see a cyclist right now, and he's hugging the curb like crazy because he knows that there's a car right behind him coming up, and the car simply cannot get by the cyclist. What is really egregious here is that Bike Winnipeg and various other people have complained about this strip for decades. There's more than enough space on the boulevard to expand and make a proper cycling infrastructure here, make a protected lane all the way down here. It just doesn't make any sense. If we do not, as a city, want cyclists on major routes like Portage Avenue or Broadway, then we have to have parallel routes that are safe for cyclists and other AT users. The simplest, cheapest, easiest thing and the most immediate way to do that is to change the road to 30K an hour. I cannot stress that enough.
Thanks for that call there, Jason. So Mark, he's calling for, particularly at the site of that accident there along Wellington, around Coburn there, 30 kilometers an hour, and I'm guessing when he says bike infrastructure, a bike lane. What do you think about that potential solution?
So certainly, we've been pushing for 30 kilometer an hour residential speed limits for a number of years now. We think that's this. If you are going to have people biking in that mixed traffic kind of scenario, we really need 30K. Wellington Crescent, when we look at that roadway, it's 4 lanes. And it's a roadway that's changed a lot over the years. Not necessarily on the road. The road stayed exactly the same, but the context around it has been changing. We've seen lots of development go up along the river. We've seen lots of development, densification go into the neighborhoods on either side. So we've really seen an increased traffic. And one of the things that happens on Wellington Crescent is you have a lot of left turns. Whether it's going into Earl Grey, whether it's going into River Heights, or it's turning out onto some of that riverbank development. So really, we should be seeing protected bike lanes there. And we think, a road diet so that we have a protected left turn lane for vehicles. Because one of the issues is that when you have those left turns, you get a lot of weaving in and out. We don't have really a better way to think of that roadway and to utilize the space is to look at a center left turn lane. So if you're in that left turn lane, you're making a left turn, but you're protected from oncoming traffic and protected, but that would allow for protected bike lanes along that roadway as well. In winter, we let that roadway narrow. So there is space. When we've done construction work on that road, we've had no problem putting up barricades on both sides that would easily create the width needed for protected bike lanes. And that would make the road safer for everyone because it's not just the people on bikes or walking that are having trouble there. It's also those people making those left turns that are in danger of getting into collisions as well.
Thanks there, Mark. We've got another caller standing by here. We've got Charles. Hello there, Charles.
Hello.
Hi, what would you like to share?
So I'm a regular cyclist around Winnipeg for just, running errands and going places. And when I'm riding on bike infrastructure, everything works, right? I go at my pace. I don't have to deal with cars. The cars go at their pace. They don't have to deal with me. And that's great. Problem is, so many places there's no infrastructure. So then I'm on the road. And then I'm struggling with what cars are doing around me. And there is, in fact, a safe passing law in Manitoba. It says you have to pass at a safe distance, and that's been defined in other jurisdictions as a meter at slower speeds and a meter and a half farther. But Manitoba drivers are never taught the rules about how to bike around how to drive around a bike. And you look at the driver handbook, it's extremely vague. You look at the ads that MPI posts, they're extremely vague. They don't say, do it this way. They never say, don't try to share the lane with a bike. They say, share the road. But nobody knows what share the road means. And so I find I get people pushing by because somehow they think they have a right to get by me when I'm on one side of the lane. They just push through way too close. And I look at who's just done this to me, and it's ordinary people. But nobody's told them, slow down, give room. It's so important that MPI and maybe the new city road safety team really educate drivers and say, when you're near a bike, slow down, give them room.
Charles, thank you so much for that. Really appreciate that perspective. We've actually, before we kind of get more reaction from you there, Mark, I just want to make sure that we get a perspective from Lucy, who's been waiting patiently on the line as well. Hello there, Lucy.
Hi.
Hi. Tell us what's on your mind.
Oh, this is so great to be able to talk about this because I have a bike, but I never use it because there are many times when I just want to stay away from the traffic and I find myself going back on the sidewalk and probably breaking the law, but I will not negotiate around those cars. And I'm a little pessimistic about, when they talk about, well, let's educate the public better, let's put more lanes on the road, widen the roads. I'm very much in agreement with the woman who talked about the way that it works in Europe. I have a son in Leipzig, and I was there last June, and it was just wonderful to see that what they do, rather than extend, try to mix the traffic of the bikes and the cars, they've got, boulevards, they extend the sidewalks. And so when we've got beautiful boulevards in Winnipeg, I can't see why they couldn't make some of them into bike lanes, because you shouldn't be mixing bicycles and cars. This is, I just think the competition between the cyclist and the motorist, it leads to the cyclist or the motorist becoming anxious and not liking the cyclist, and then the cyclist feeling like they're trying to negotiate on a bridge or something when a bus is going by. It doesn't surprise me that people end up in accidents. And to see it work so well in Europe, I just wish that Winnipeg, in designing these kinds of, they're trying to integrate bike traffic into the city now, which is fabulous. Why not, extend, put the lanes, extend the sidewalks, put the lanes. There's so many times when a sidewalk is totally empty and you're on the road with a bunch of cars. It doesn't make sense to me why they can't just extend the sidewalk a little bit and keep the bikes and the traffic totally separate. And that would also alleviate the problems that we have in Winnipeg with snow, because many of these bike lanes are covered in snow. And how do you take that snow off for a cyclist who wants to travel in winter? I think it would be a lot easier if we just thought about our design and looked at cities that where it really works well and copy that.
Lucy, thanks so much for that perspective. Really appreciate it. Because we only have a few minutes left in the show, I actually want to squeeze in one more call that we got earlier today from Marianne that speaks a little bit about political will around cycling in our city.
Hi, this is Marianne calling just about the conversation about safety for cyclists. I think part of the root of the problem is the attitude of certain members of City Hall. I remember one who recently called cyclists bike Nazis. So I think if the attitude starts from the top and we start to respect cyclists as part of our traffic system, then there will be more safety for cyclists. Thanks very much. Safe riding, everybody.
She's referring there to City Councillor Ross Wyatt. Thanks for that call, Mary Ann. So just to cap it off here, we've got a couple more minutes left here, Mark. Just some of your final thoughts. What do you make of cycling culture in our city and the political will to make these changes that we just heard, suggested from Lucy and all the other callers who just joined us in this half hour?
We know there's a willingness and a desire for people to get out. We've done surveys with CA Manitoba. The city's done surveys. They all show that there's a lot more people who would like to bike if they had that infrastructure in place, if they felt safe, than are biking now. So we know we can reach these goals of getting more people cycling, but we need people to feel safe. And, like the caller before had mentioned, infrastructure plays a huge part in that, making sure that the infrastructure we have in place separates people, but it's also creating the sight lines. So, when we talk about sidewalk cycling, really we want to make sure we're getting a good distance from those side roads. We need a barrier between that. And often it looks like it's on the sidewalk in Europe, but it's not actually. It's a separated bike lane, often at different levels. And they're engineered to think about how people are going to react in those intersections. They're also often engineered so that if you're on a side street coming out, you get a speed bump, a speed table as you cross that sidewalk, as you cross that bike lane, just to reinforce that notion that the person walking or biking has the right of way and that you and the vehicle are yielding. And, ultimately, political will is what's needed. We have the income, we have the revenue, we have the space in our rights of way to make this city safe for walking, for cycling, and for transit. But we need to put the investment in there to make those changes, to say that safety is our number one goal. So really, we need to see ourselves increase the road safety budget, increase the budget for the bike network, and make sure that when we are doing our road rehabs, we're taking use of that opportunity to build those networks for us.
Mark Coho, Executive Director of Bike Winnipeg, thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me on.
Thank you, and thank you to all the callers who called in today. I'm going to make a quick pivot to host of Up to Speed, Faith Fundal, who's going to tell us a little about what to expect this afternoon.
Yes, Corey, we're going to continue the conversation around bike safety. Some folks in town are not happy about what has been happening recently, so we'll hear from some of them, and stay tuned for that conversation still to come on the program.
Thank you very much, Faith.
Thank you.
That is host of Up to Speed, Faith Fundal. Stay tuned for that. Thank you, everyone who helped put the show together. Wendy Parker, Dylan Longhurst, and our senior producer of audio, Leif Larson. I'm Corey Funk, in for Janet Stewart. Hope you get outside, do something in love with the people you love this weekend. Have yourselves a happy Friday. See you later.
The written word. Books can have a powerful effect on our mental and physical health.